This is Lee Clegg. I'm president of the Africa Business Portal. We're so happy today to welcome you to our webinar, Safer Entry Point Botswana. We are thrilled to be able to allow you to discover Botswana, and we're grateful for our very special guest today, Ambassador David Newman, who's the ambassador from the Embassy of Republic of Botswana in the United States. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you, Lee. It's good to be with you today.
We'll go right to work. Our first question is, what understanding of Africa do you feel is essential to being effective doing business in Africa?
Well, I think many people don't realize just how large Africa is. One way to visualize its size will be to consider that it's possible to fit the USA, China, India, Brazil, and the UK comfortably within its boundaries. And within those boundaries there are 55 countries, or 48 in sub-Saharan Africa, containing over 1.2 billion people. And also there's much diversity in terms of languages, I think over 3,000 of them, and cultures and political and legal systems. Now, an increasing population can be the engine for growth. And it's clear that the population of Africa is growing drastically. Indeed, some have estimated that by 2050, it's likely to double to 2.5 billion people. So with high fertility rates and with good governance, adequate infrastructure, sound utilization of natural resources, there is clearly potential for sustainable growth. And certainly Africa does have the agricultural potential to feed itself and more. However, on the downside, only 20 of those 55 countries are deemed electoral democracies, and 14 of those 20 rank among the most fragile nations on earth. However, on a more positive note, some regions are experiencing peace and security like never before. For example, the Southern African region, where economic opportunities abound. So I think to answer your question more directly, as a starting point, my advice would be do your homework. When you look at particular countries or regions, consider the history, institutions, governance and decision-making processes, adherence to the rule of law, respect for human rights, and safety and stability.
Wonderful response. Thank you, Ambassador. How does the history of Botswana counter a sometimes negative perception of Africa?
Well, we know that Africa hasn't always received great press, and probably because bad news travels faster than good news, Africa has clearly suffered from a negative perception. Problem, if you're looking, I was thinking of the sea conflicts, corruption, contagious diseases. And I think a good example of how that can pan out is that during the Ebola outbreak in 2014, many US citizens canceled their planned holidays to Southern Africa, including Botswana. However, the actual flight distance between Freetown and Sierra Leone, where the outbreak occurred, the distance from there to Gaborone, the capital of Botswana, is indeed greater than from Freetown to either London or Barbados, and nobody cancelled the holidays to either of those destinations due to Ebola. Botswana is a good news story, I think I could call it that, and perhaps because of that, its story isn't as well known as it could, indeed, perhaps should be. I think to get some understanding of Botswana's roots as a sovereign nation, one would do well to see the film A United Kingdom, which was released in the US earlier this year. And it tells the story of our first president in the lead up to independence. Now, indeed, at independence in 1966, Botswana was one of the poorest nations on earth. And indeed was described by one reporter at the time, described it as, quotes, an impoverished, arid and hungry land without hope of achieving economic stability. And he went on to say that it is destined to be an international charity case forever, unquote. Well, he couldn't have been more wrong. Why? Well, a combination of factors, I think. Good luck. I think you always need luck, and indeed we were fortunate with the discovery of diamonds 1 year after independence in 1967. Good leadership and governance, that we were fortunate to have leaders who led by example and for the benefit of the people of Botswana. For example, the diamonds mined from 1967 have been mined responsibly in partnership with De Beers, a relationship that has indeed flourished for over 50 years, and with all the government revenues being utilized to improve the quality of lives of Botswana through education, health, and infrastructure. Strong institutions, including a fully functional 3 tiers of government, provide checks and balances, and there is great respect for human rights, property rights, and the rule of law as enshrined in our constitution. And I can confirm that personally, having been a judge of the High Court in Botswana for 10 years before I took this posting. As a result, we've actually had no conflicts whatsoever, external or internal, within our 51-year history as a sovereign nation. It's Africa's longest democracy, and having held elections, in fact 10 elections now, one every 5 years, all of which have been deemed by the US government to have been fair, free, and transparent, and with a seamless transfer of power. Being a country at perpetual peace means that it is safe and secure to live and work. For example, also the general public are not permitted to own firearms. It's also consistently deemed by Transparency International to be the least corrupt country in Africa, and indeed within the top 30 in the world. So with a zero tolerance to corruption, it is consistently ranked one of the most stable and investor-friendly economies in Africa, with an upper middle income economy. Indeed, a far cry from 1966.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that background, Ambassador. How does Botswana's land-linked status benefit those businesses wanting to do business in Southern Africa?
Whilst it's correct, I think that Botswana is located at the center of Southern Africa, it's fair to say that the benefits of land-linked status have not always been apparent, and that the epithet landlocked would have been more correct term for many years. Indeed, it had to be so because of apartheid South Africa and Southwest Africa, which is now Namibia, the civil wars in Zimbabwe, Angola, and Mozambique. So it was necessary to have an inward-looking perspective. And of course, that created its own challenges, particularly given the small market with a population of just over 2 million people within the country. But that's our history. That's not our current or indeed our future situation. With peace in our region, the benefits of being at the heart of the 15-nation Southern African Development Community of, as I mentioned, 250 million people are readily apparent. Within our region, which is now at peace, Botswana is well positioned to benefit from its land-linked status, with businesses wishing to serve the region. The benefits, I think we can list access to the market, as I mentioned, the 250 million people in the 15-nation SADC community. And also, if one breaks that down, over 55 million of whom are in the Southern African Customs Union. That will be the people of South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland, and Botswana. Botswana has a stable inflation rate, low, stable, and predictable levels. Currently, the commercial bank prime lending rate is 7%. We have low taxation rates, 15% for manufacturing, financial services, and companies registered at the Innovation Hub. Corporation tax is set at 22% for the other sectors, and maximum personal tax is at 25%. We have double taxation agreements, as with South Africa, and there are tax allowances for training costs at 200%. Important to know that there are no restrictions at all on business ownership within our country, no foreign exchange controls, and no restrictions on remittances of profits and dividends. We have stable civil labor relations and a high literacy rate of 80 to 85%, and a life expectancy of 65 years, and with English as one of our 2 national languages. It's a youthful population, 50% I think are under 30 years of age, and that's important because Botswana has been listed in the 2016 Global Entrepreneurship Index, along with South Africa and Tunisia, I think it is, as showing the most promising ecosystems for entrepreneurship in Africa. SADC has developed an action plan for the industrialization strategy and roadmap 2015 to 2063. Initially, the aim of creating an enabling environment for sustaining industrial development as a driver for sustained economic development is anchored on 3 pillars: industrialization as a champion of economic transformation, enhanced competitiveness, and deeper regional integration. So it's clearly important that we are at the heart of that action plan. As further evidence of regional integration, we have Customs Single Window Project, facilitated by USAID Trade Hub, who incidentally also have an office in Gaborone, our capital. The one-stop border post pilot between Botswana and Namibia has been successful and will be rolled out to other border posts. Also, the contract has been signed for a one-stop border post between Botswana and Zambia at Kazungula, and this is critically important because at Kazungula, currently a road and rail bridge is under construction across the Chobe-Zambezi, which will open up land and rail communications to Central Africa. I think those are the key points that I think I can bring to bear in relation to your question, Lee.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful response, Ambassador. What are Botswana's key core business strengths?
I think I mentioned some of them already. Stable, safe environment, good governance, ranked first in Africa, 13th in the world for soundness of fiscal policy. As I mentioned, also sound legal systems, adherence to rule of law, which obviously is important for example, for enforcing legal contracts. Consistently ranked the least corrupt nation in Africa with strong procurement regulations and culture. I think it's also important to know that politically and economically, it's not in anyone's pocket, if I may call it that, which enables the country to take principled stands on matters such as the International Criminal Court. And I think it's not by accident that the SADC headquarters are set in Gaborone. So I mentioned those, I've touched on others as well. For example, the top sovereign credit rating, Standard & Poor and Moody's consistently rank Botswana. Currently, I think it's A- for long and A-2 for short-term bonds, which is clearly the best credit risk in Africa. As far as investor confidence, the investor confidence indicator for Africa ranked Botswana highest. That was a score based on 12 bellwether international evaluations. In the recently published Quantum Global Report, Botswana is ranked the most attractive of the 55 countries for investment on the continent. We've had a sustained period of economic growth, which has taken the country from a low-income economy at independence and for a number of years after, to currently an upper middle income level. And indeed, one of the goals of our Vision 2036 is to become an upper income country. Also important for investors to know about the economic stimulus initiatives that exist. We have a sustainable development model aimed at balancing social, economic, and environmental pillars of development. For that, one can have reference to the Gaborone Declaration on Sustainability in Africa, which has been adopted by many countries. We have an economic stimulus program set over a 3-year period to stimulate our economy, accelerate job creation, and to promote economic diversification. Targeted sectors include infrastructure, roads, schools, health facilities, tourism, agriculture, manufacturing and services, through the establishment of special economic zones where additional benefits are available to investors in those particular zones. One of them is the Siliba Pikwi Economic Revitalization Program, which offers significant investment incentives, including land allocation, tax breaks, preferential ICT rates, one-stop service centers, etc. And important to know, Lee, that we have a strong, as I mentioned, diversification drive, with tourism being a major beneficiary of that, with our aim to diversify from our diamond sector, in respect of which we've tended to be over-reliant in the past, and our tourism sector, as a result, is growing by leaps and bounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I think people would want to know, what are Botswana's current strengths with respect to the extractive industries?
Yes, I think, as you know, Lee, Botswana is endowed with significant mineral deposits. Currently, our mineral revenue contributes about 40% of our government revenue, and mining employs over 22,000 people. It's the world's leading producer of diamonds by value, and also important when one is looking to invest in the country to know about how other partnerships have done in the past. And while the government's partnership with De Beers, which has endured for 50 years, this particular year, I think is called the most successful PPP in the world. It's the gold standard of PPPs. And the relocation of the Diamond Trading Center from London, where all the sorting and sales of diamonds mined in Botswana and mined by De Beers in South Africa, Namibia, and Canada takes place. So what happens now is, as a result of having the sorting and sales office now located in Gaborone, is that there are 10 auctions a year and 21, I think, site holders come and bid for their diamonds. There's growth of beneficiation as a result of that through the development of cutting and polishing businesses. And also over the last several years has been the creation of the Okavango Diamond Company, in terms of which now 15% of diamonds mined in Botswana are sold through that company. And in that way, it enables Botswana to learn more about the diamond business and to learn to grow our economy with more focus on facilitation and less on regulation. It's important also, I think, for us to get the message across as a country as we go forward, that all our diamonds are ethically sourced, that they do good for all the people and not for a privileged few, and that they are natural and not laboratory made. We have, I think, currently three active Botswana mines, and they produce over 20 million carats a year. Also, there are several other private mines. One of them comes to mind, and some of the listeners may be aware of one of those mines, because the Lucara diamond mine has produced the second largest ever diamond after the Kimberley diamond, which was mined well over 100 years ago. This is now the second largest and weighed 1,109 carats. Other licensed mines we have in Botswana include coal. We have large deposits of coal, large reserves of coal and coal bed methane, and base metals, copper, nickel. They have been struggling due to low mineral commodity prices currently. And we also have soda ash, salt, and some gold.
Ambassador, that's a fascinating background on the diamond industry. But what are Botswana's strengths outside of the extractive industries?
I touched on one before, Lee, that Botswana is arguably one of the world's leaders in conservation and sustainable tourism. I think its success can be attributable to strong positions coming from our leadership, good governance, lack of conflict or corruption, and indeed we have a hunting ban on all wildlife, and that's been in place since 2014. We have community involvement and empowerment initiatives in wildlife areas, which is critically important given that over 40%, I think something like 42% of our land is dedicated to national parks or wildlife management areas. And this has helped create the space necessary to allow for human-wildlife coexistence. Botswana is currently home to the largest free-roaming population of African elephants in the world. And it's estimated that about 160,000 of elephants are resident in our country, with about 40,000 migratory herds passing through. And this would account for over 1/3, indeed, of the total global African elephant population. We have zero tolerance for illegal wildlife trade and mismanagement of our country's natural resources, and strict laws and stiff punishment for those in breach. But due to the success in conservation, we have marketed Botswana as one of the world's most sought after ecotourism destinations. I did mention earlier that Botswana was the Lonely Planet's Global Destination of the Year in 2016. And this year, a study ranked 152 countries on a megafauna conservation index, with Botswana ranking first. So that's really, as I say, tourism, ecotourism linked to conservation initiatives. Renewable energy is another industry that I would like to highlight going forward, that notwithstanding our coal reserves, that with over 300 days of sun and the government's commitment to our green future, I think that's evident from change of some of our ministries. One of them, relevant one in this case, being the Ministry of Mineral Resources, Green Technology and Energy Security. Our energy future is in the development of renewables, particularly to communities without access to grid electricity. And there the emphasis is on solar energy. Briefly, I'd also like to highlight our financial services sector. We have the Botswana Stock Exchange, which is Botswana's national stock exchange, given the responsibility to operate and regulate the securities market in Botswana. Also, cargo, freight, and logistics being centrally located in the SADC region, it offers land-link access to at least 7 fast-growing markets around us and serves as a perfect location to leverage regional trade growth. And intra-regional transport volumes are expected to more than double within the next decade or so. So we believe that the country has the best land-linked infrastructure in Africa and one of the best logistics operating environments in our region. And finally, I think I can mention, in answer to your question, the automotive and components manufacturing industry. As one of the most affluent economies in Southern Africa with a robust growth outlook, Botswana is home to a growing automotive market. It has a vehicle ownership rate of, I think, about 210 now vehicles per 1,000 people, which is far above the African average of just 43 vehicles. In recent years, Botswana has positioned itself as a supplier of vehicle parts and components to the region, especially to South Africa's automotive industry, resulting in strong increase in vehicle part exports from Botswana. So future demand in the SADC region in particular presents multiple opportunities for investors seeking to tap into this and other industries in our region.
Thank you, Ambassador. Could you share with us what is your vision for Botswana's future?
I think we have a bright future. Our Vision 2036, which we've recently embarked on since last year with our 50 years of independence, that has 4 pillars: sustainable economic development, a sustainable environment, human and social development, and good governance, peace and security, which has been there indeed all along. Botswana is and can be a really strong regional hub. I believe that it is ideally positioned to be the headquarters for corporations supplying to or otherwise servicing our region. I mentioned it being a world leader in ecotourism and conservation initiatives, and I think we will get stronger and stronger as time goes on in that regard with our political commitment. And finally, I think I'd like to mention that my vision is that Botswana will become a leading education and research center, particularly in health and education programs. We have recently built a teaching hospital, and also interesting to note that currently a pediatric oncology hospital is under construction, which will serve for the region, and that has been constructed in partnership with the Texas Children's Hospital and Bristol Myers Squibb. So I think we have a bright future ahead of us, Lee.
I have one last question. That is, what business support organizations exist? Obviously, maybe you could highlight the Botswana Investment and Trade Center, but if I'm interested in doing business in Botswana, what support organizations can I turn to?
Well, Lee, we have the Botswana Investment and Trade Center. That's situated in the Central Business District. His offices are in the Central Business District, in the center of Gaborone. And that offers investment facilitation services, a one-stop shop. That would include company and business registrations, opening bank accounts, visas, work residence permits, any licenses that may be required for trade or businesses, and utility connections, other things like income tax, registration, location of land and factory shelves, and information relating to any other incentives that are on offer, tax breaks, training schemes, etc., etc. And they also offer aftercare services as well in terms of renewals and expansions, etc. So I think that would be a good starting place for potential investors to our country.
Thank you. And now we'll have a short question and answer series. And our first question is for you, Ambassador. What are the economic opportunities in the agricultural sector in Botswana?
They're better than they ever were, in fact, Lee. We have a climate which is probably quite similar, I would think, to Nevada in the US. We have challenges in relation to access to water. Fortunately, those have been alleviated to a large degree because of heavy rains that we had, unusually heavy rains that we had earlier on this year, as a result of which all our dams within the country were at 100% capacity, which that hadn't been the case for many, many years. So obviously But due naturally to shortages of water, inherent shortages of water, we have to look for the technologies and the means to be able to make the most with the limited resources that we have. So obviously we're looking to feed ourselves. We have areas of our country, agricultural areas, which are given over to agricultural productivity. But so certainly the opportunities are there within our country. And as I say, technology improves, as the means of doing more with less become possible, then our agricultural sector will grow and grow.
Are there opportunities in the healthcare sector in Botswana? That's our next question.
Thank you, Lee. In a short answer to that is yes, there are. Botswana's positioned itself to be a hub for training and capacity building in medical and health sciences research in SADC, the Southern African region. It's hosted internationally renowned medical research companies, institutions for many years, in fact, including from the States, the Center for Disease Control, CDC, Harvard School of Public Health, AIDS Initiative, Baylor College, University of Pennsylvania have been doing work in the country for many years. And one important recent initiative is the development of a pediatric oncology center, which will be based in Gaborone. It's under construction at the moment. I believe to be the first pediatric oncology center on the continent, in fact. That's in partnership with Texas Children's Hospital and Baylor College of Medicine, Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation and the Botswana government. And that will serve as a regional training and treatment hub for the Southern African region. So I think that's a very important initiative to mention. And Botswana, with its location, I believe is ideally located for pharmaceutical medical equipment manufacturing to supply the region as well, and with a number of incentives that would be offered to interested companies that would wish to set up in Botswana. I think that would be a very attractive proposition. Thank you.
Sound like very positive opportunities in the healthcare sector.
Correct.
Ambassador, the next question dealt with earlier in the webinar, you referenced SADC. What is SADC and how does it benefit business opportunities in Botswana?
Yes, I suppose I should have explained a little bit more about what the acronym SADC actually stands for and who falls within that, the group. SADC is a Southern African Development Community, and that's a regional economic community, and it comprises 15 sovereign states. Let me just list them. I'll try to do it in some order. As well as the islands you have of Mauritius, Madagascar, and Seychelles, then on land, effectively, if I can try and do it in alphabetical order, Angola, Botswana, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Swaziland, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. I think that should add up to 15, Lee. I trust I haven't missed any out. Those are the 15 countries of comprising SADC. The key aims are to achieve regional integration and poverty eradication. Those have been determined to be the priorities, and within obviously that our region, and that it will be done through economic development and ensuring, of course, peace and security, because without peace and security, you won't have economic development. Now, SADC, that actually has a market of almost now 300 million people within the 15 member states, and with a combined GDP of about 650 to 700 billion US dollars. The SADC Free Trade Area, FTA, was launched in 2013, and that provides zero tariffs for approaching about 85% of goods traded amongst member states. As a member of another entity, SACU, that's acronym for the Southern African Customs Union, Botswana's products enjoy duty-free access to a market of more than 60 people in 5 countries, with a combined GDP of about 350 billion US dollars. Now, those 5 countries, as well as Botswana, includes South Africa, Namibia, Swaziland, and Lesotho. So that's SACU. So with Botswana being located at the heart of Southern Africa, I believe that our country provides any company wishing to invest in Botswana with the closest proximity and access to preferential markets, both in SACU and SADC. Botswana's capital, Gaborone, also permanently hosts the SADC Secretariat, which is located in the newly developed and ever-expanding Central Business District right in the city centre.
Sounds like a powerful force to have in country.
Yes, very much so.
Ambassador, how does your office support business opportunities, and what other organizations can assist me if I'm trying to do business in Botswana?
Well, yes, it's obviously the case that the Botswana Embassy, based in Washington, D.C., assists any U.S. businesses interested in investing in Botswana. And we are ably assisted by a number of honorary consuls spread across the country, who, let's say, if there was interest in the West Coast, from the West Coast, then we have an honorary consul in California who is also there to be of whatever assistance he can be. That assistance would include, obviously, setting up meetings, providing introductions to appropriate stakeholders, and providing relevant information to assist interested parties in making informed decisions. So that's the embassy and our team. In addition, back home, I think probably I should place most emphasis on BITC, acronym for Botswana Investment and Trade Center. That's our Investment and Trade Promotion Authority, and that's responsible for investment promotion and attraction, export promotion and development. Now, BITC assists companies through a one-stop shop and offers many practical services to ease the setting up and doing business. The obvious ones that come to mind: the company registration, the visas, work permits, licenses, connections to utilities, the obvious access to industrial commercial land. That's their job, to assist all those elements, as I say, to speed up, to assist, to expedite the setting up and doing of business. Also, to provide the information that potential investors would seek in terms of Botswana's business climate, the regulatory regimes, investment opportunities, ones I've spoken about before, explaining the issues of no foreign exchange controls, being able to remit full repatriation of profits and dividends, the fact that there are no restrictions on business ownerships, all the liberal tax regimes. I think with the lowest tax rates in the SADC region in Botswana, and particularly in specified areas, manufacturing being one. And also, BITC would be there to explain the additional incentives. For example, if a company was setting up in one of our SEZ, our special economic zones that we have around the country. And in addition to BITC, obviously there are other organizations. If one wished to partner with a Botswana entity, one could approach also either directly or through BITC, the Botswana Development Corporation, which is obviously there to grow business and to spur the economy, not just in Botswana, but also by involvement in activities and businesses throughout the continent.
Ambassador, what investment opportunities are there in the diamond industry now? And is it too late to get engaged in the diamond industry in some way?
No, not at all. I mean, one is at liberty to buy diamonds. You can buy rough. If you want to buy, and I encourage you to look to buy Botswana diamonds, 15% of all production from Botswana is processed through the Okavango Diamond Company. That's a Botswana company. And all that requires is one to register with the company, and one can do that online, and one can then purchase online as well. So certainly one can buy right from source. I think I mentioned already, but we have obviously a 50-year partnership between our government and De Beers, and that's reflected in the company Botswana, the JV, 50-50 JV, which is commonly referred to as the world's most successful PPP. I think it's as I say, it's 50 years old this year. Also important to note is that in 2013, De Beers relocated its international sales division from London to Gaborone, and DTC Botswana, Diamond Trading Company, Botswana, it's another 50-50 JV between the government and De Beers, is now the world's largest and most sophisticated diamond sorting and valuing operation. And that operates, as I say, in Gaborone. And that's brought growth in the development of downstream activities. That's obviously what it was designed to do, including sorting, cutting, polishing, and jewelry manufacturing, and all other diamond-related activities. GIA is located there, so certification. All done in-house, if you like, in country. All that occurs within Botswana. And of course, with that comes other additional opportunities. Diamond finance, being banking and insurance, key to development of the industry, and also diamond security services, and many more that, related as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. Our next question is, how strong is Botswana's business and financial services industry, and what are its future prospects?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we aim to become a world-class hub for cross-border financial and business services into the continent and globally. Our International Financial Services Center, IFSC, supports regulatory framework. All that its regulatory framework provides regional and international banks, international business firms, insurance companies, investment funds, an advantageous platform to penetrate new markets or to consolidate their position in sub-Saharan Africa's fast-growing markets. Among key opportunities in the sector, I would say, under financial services, that would include investment services, accounting, tax advisory, banking, life assurance being an important one, and also business process outsourcing that are location, complementary time zone, global connectivity, and skilled workforce would provide attractive location for BPO and shared service centers for the continent and indeed globally.
Thank you, Ambassador. And next question, I understand Botswana has a dry climate. What opportunity does this present for Botswana?
Well, of course, it presents challenges and opportunities. We are effectively a desert climate, I suppose similar in many ways to Nevada. And we rely heavily on rainwater. So as with Nevada, water conservation is critical. And priorities for Botswana currently would be water source location, building pipelines from major sources to areas of need, water recycling, and water treatment. So I think in the water space, I think those would be our current priorities there. And moving from water to other issues relating to our climate and what opportunities exist there. Notwithstanding that Botswana has very high coal reserves, untapped as yet, the country offers excellent conditions for solar projects. We have between 300 and 320 clear sunny days every year. And I think that equates to over 3,000 hours of sunshine. Botswana has recently issued a tender for the development of a 100 megawatt solar power plant. And indeed, more solar projects are expected in the future. So I think we are committed to COP21 as a country. We strongly believe in climate change as a factor, that's something that must be addressed. And we want to do as much as we can to ensure that we comply and put as much pressure, influence on other countries to do the same. So to ensure that we go forward with sustainable policies in order to meet the global requirements in that regard.
Thank you, Ambassador. I live in Arizona, so I have a great appreciation for your climate.
Yes, I could have, I suppose, as easily mentioned Arizona as Nevada, yes.
Ambassador, next question. How can small and medium-sized companies be effective doing business in Botswana?
Yes, Botswana has an investor-friendly business environment. It's a free market economy, liberal foreign exchange controls, as I've mentioned, liberal private foreign incentive schemes that welcome joint venture operations. And government has never nationalized or expropriated any foreign business. I think that's important for potential investors to be aware of. And instead, it's pursuing a privatization strategy to achieve a sustained economic growth. The USAID's Southern Africa Trade and Investment Hub has an office located in Gaborone CBD, in fact, very close to the SADC Secretariat, and they work closely together. That office facilitates trade to increase competitiveness, intra-regional trade and food security in the region. I think I could also mention in this regard the Innovation Hub, which is located near Gaborone Airport and the Diamond Center. And that's engaged in initiatives to assist young entrepreneurs and startups. Of particular note, I think, would be the recent collaboration between private sector in the form of De Beers and Stanford Graduate School of Business. And that's in collaboration with the Innovation Hub and the government of Botswana. And that's to run two programs open to entrepreneurs in Botswana, South Africa, and Namibia. The center will be in Gaborone. It will start running from January. And there are two particular programs. One is called the Seed Transformation Program, which is a 12-month program. And there's another one, a shorter one, called the Go-to-Market Programs. I was recently at Stanford meeting with those involved from the Graduate School of Business. They are as excited as we are that these programs will be underway. Work has already not just commenced in terms of setting the programs up, but also identifying those who have applied. And so a process is underway currently to identify those who will form part of the first program. But very exciting times for our country and also for the region itself. And it's showing, I think, where our focus is going forward.
Well, those sound like wonderful initiatives for all sizes of business in Botswana. Ambassador, next question deals with infrastructure. What infrastructure projects are in place or being planned by Botswana to provide necessary connectivity for facilitating future intra-regional trade?
Yeah, according to the World Economic Forum, Botswana has the best landlocked infrastructure, or land-linked, we prefer to call these days infrastructure in Africa. And also, I think the third best, was ranked logistics operating environment in the region. Obviously, its central location in SADC presents multiple opportunities for investors to tap the cargo freight logistics sector to leverage regional trade growth. Botswana is connected to South Africa to the south, Zambia and Zimbabwe to the north, and Namibia to the west by a network of tarred roads. The Trans-Kalahari Corridor links South Africa and Walvis Bay, where, important to note, that Botswana has a dry port. And Walvis Bay, being in Namibia, I should point that out. And it transcends through Botswana. A particular initiative, which is currently ongoing, and in fact, I'm not sure whether it's probably about 50% complete now, is the Kazangula Bridge. This is in the north of Botswana, linking Botswana and Zambia across the Zambezi River. Now, currently, one only has access from Botswana to Zambia or Zambia to Botswana through the use of a ferry over the Zambezi River. But this bridge will actually connect not just by road, but also by rail as well. It's due to be expected to be completed next year. So as I said, it's well underway. And that then will be the fastest link between South African coast, Cape Town, and right up through into the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, and to the heart of Africa itself. And Kazangula Bridge perfectly positions Botswana to capture the regional consumer freight flows, whether it's in relation to cargo consolidation and the dry port, as I mentioned, and cargo warehousing as well. And indeed, the development of Kazangula as a town itself, there's a lot of development, a lot of plans there to set up effectively as a green town or green city. So it will really be a futuristic center. So that's exciting. A huge game changer in terms of road and rail transportation. Other projects as well planned, east-west corridors, Walvis Bay, Namibia, through to Johannesburg via Gaborone. That is another. That will be an alternative to the highly congested Durban port on the east coast of South Africa. Obviously, that corridor will be important for Botswana and provide important linkages there in transshipment and consolidation as a hub within SADC. And there's also a planned corridor to Mozambique from Botswana through Zimbabwe for heavy haul rail, basically a heavy haul rail corridor, which will go then through to the Mozambique port of Tecabanini, I think it's called.
Well, thank you. That is really helpful. It's great, wonderful things happening in the infrastructure area and a lot of opportunity for business. Ambassador, next question. What other global market access opportunities are available for an investor in Botswana?
I think of three that come to mind. There's the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, the IEPA, that ensures unhindered market access for existing exports products to the EU, also through SACU. I've mentioned SACU, the Southern African Customs Union, that the Botswana is part of the Trade Investment and Development Cooperation Agreement, TIDCA, with the United States. And of course, last but not least, Botswana, it satisfies all the eligibility requirements and therefore is a recipient of the benefits under AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunities Act. So that obviously enables products from Botswana to move into the US market duty-free and quota-free.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity we've had today, Ambassador, to have you as a presenter at this webinar. And the messages that you've shared are just incredible, and I think creates so much opportunity to overcome misconceptions as it relates to doing business in Africa, and I think make the business community much more comfortable doing business in Africa. And it helps every country in Africa, because if people have to relook at one country, they have to relook at each country. And it has been a great honor and privilege for us to work with you before and during this webinar, and thank you again. And is there anything, comments you'd like to make at the end?
Well, only to say, Lee, that I thank you for you and the work that your team has done. It's very important to us to get our message across, and this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that. I've said before, and others have said as well, that Botswana has in the past been rather a best kept secret within Africa for reasons I'm not quite sure about, but we want to, it's not something that we want to keep any longer, if it's not something that we wish to preserve in that regard. So we want to get our message out and across, and this is a wonderful vehicle to do that. So thank you, Lee, for the work that you're doing in assisting Botswana, and indeed, as you say, other countries in the region, because much of what I'm saying is not just to benefit Botswana, but it benefits particularly our region. And that's how we are operating moving forward. We, as I say, we're engaging a lot more, we're working together a lot more, because coming back to what I said at the beginning of our talk today, without peace and security, you cannot have economic development. Unfortunately, we have peace and security like we haven't had before. And as a result of that, we are moving forward economically like we haven't done before. So all that is exceedingly positive. And Lee, thank you very much for the opportunity to get that message across.
Thank you, Ambassador. And we'd like to thank all who've participated in the webinar today. It's been wonderful to have you, and hope you've felt like the information has been helpful. And as we mentioned in the beginning, we'll be creating a landing page over the next week with the on-demand portions of the video, and and additional materials that the embassy has agreed to furnish us that will be helpful in your consideration of doing business in Botswana. And if you like what you saw today, we would also invite you to our virtual conference, which will be held February 27th and 28th, Afra Innovate, which will focus on innovation and technology and its impact in various sectors in Africa. And we thank you again, and we look forward to being with you soon. Bye-bye.